Hello, friends. Here is something that trips up a lot of programmers, even experienced ones. You write a line like $include or $define at the top of your source file, and you call it a directive. But then someone mentions the preprocessor, and suddenly it feels like two different things are floating around, with no clear boundary between them. Are they the same thing? Is one part of the other? In this video, we are going to settle that cleanly. A directive is an instruction. The preprocessor is the engine that reads and executes those instructions. One is the command, the other is what carries it out. By the end, you will know exactly where each one lives in your build pipeline, and why the distinction actually matters when you are writing real code. All right, let's start with the preprocessor. The preprocessor is a separate tool that runs before the compiler ever sees your code. It sits at the very beginning of the build pipeline. You write your source file, the preprocessor reads it, transforms it, and hands a modified version to the compiler. The compiler never touches your original file. What does the preprocessor actually do during that transformation? It scans your source code looking for special instructions. When it finds one, it acts on it. Maybe it pastes in the contents of another file. Maybe it replaces a name with a value everywhere it appears. Or maybe it removes entire sections of code based on a condition. The result is a single, expanded, self-contained text file, ready for compilation. Now, what are those special instructions it looks for? That is exactly what a directive is. All right, so now that we know what the preprocessor is, let's talk about how you actually talk to it. That is what a directive is. A directive is an instruction you write in your source file specifically for the preprocessor. It is not compiled code. The compiler never even sees it in its original form. Every directive starts with a hash symbol. Take include, for example. When you write #include and a file name, you are telling the preprocessor to paste the entire contents of that file right there. Then there is #define. That one tells the preprocessor to replace every occurrence of a name with a value throughout your code. These are not function calls, not statements. They are commands to a separate tool that runs before compilation even begins. Keep that distinction clear, because next we will see exactly what happens when the preprocessor reads these and acts on them. All right, let's see the full picture. When you build your program, the preprocessor runs first, before the compiler ever touches your code. It scans your source file, finds every directive, and acts on each one. A #include gets replaced with the full contents of that header file. A #define macro gets substituted everywhere its name appears. By the time the preprocessor is done, all those directives are gone. What remains is plain, expanded code. No directives, just the result of following them. That transformed output is what the compiler actually receives and compiles. So the two are partners in a pipeline. Directives are your instructions. The preprocessor is the one that carries them out, and the compiler only ever sees the finished result. We'll lock in the key distinction and wrap everything up. All right, let's lock this in. A directive is an instruction written in your source file, a line that starts with a hash symbol and tells something what to do. The preprocessor is the engine that reads those instructions, acts on them, and rewrites your code before the compiler ever sees it. One is the command. The other is what carries it out. They work together every single build, quietly, before compilation even begins. That distinction, directive as instruction, preprocessor as executor, is what makes the whole system click. Once you see it that way, things like conditional compilation and macro expansion stop feeling like magic and start feeling obvious. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.